So here we are again, everybody. I feel like I was just talking about the PlayStation with the announcement of the Portal like last month, but Sony is at it again with another biggish announcement with the updated, slimmer PS5 consoles coming out in about a month from now. This is going to eventually replace the launch model completely once they run out of stock, so I figured I'd give it a brief rundown of what to expect so you all know what to expect. There's some interesting choices here from Sony, so let's just get right into it and talk about what you need to know. An upgrade in internal specs does not seem to be the focus with this smaller PS5, which I was sort of expecting. However, one small upgrade for people is storage, with the new models rocking a terabyte of base storage compared to the 825 gigabytes that the launch versions came with. It's honestly not much, but with the ballooning sizes of modern games, I'll take anything I can get. Where this revamped model really shines for me is in its overall design and size. So right out of the gate, both the disc version as well as the discless version of this new model is a lot smaller than the launch model, which is huge because those original consoles were way too big to be practical in a lot of living room setups. I just ended up putting mine behind the TV because it took up too much space otherwise and didn't really fit anywhere else for me. According to the PlayStation blog, they are officially 30% smaller, which is great. This doesn't sound like a lot, but when you look at the image from IGN that I've just put up, it becomes clear how much that really is. This is now entering manageable size territory. Maybe now I can finally show off my PlayStation without it taking over the whole room, which would be awesome. The PlayStation blog also announced that the consoles are 18 to 24% lighter, depending on if it has a disc drive or not. This isn't as huge for me, but is a plus regardless. It does, however, make me curious where they were able to cut that weight because the base PS5 looked like it was packed pretty tight from the teardowns I remember seeing when it came out. Who knows? I'm not an engineer, but the smaller form factor is nice nonetheless. Overall, I think everyone can agree that that is great. Another plus from this revamp is the updated design as well as the semi-modular ability of this new version. When the PS5 was announced all the way back in April of 2019, I kinda had to get used to the design of the console. It wasn't horrible and it's grown on me, but I have to say overall, this new design just seems more sleek and polished. Adding the brake halfway down the side panel seems to be the finishing touch that was missing for me. On top of that, the top is a glossy material while the bottom portion has a matte finish, which adds a subtle tactile contrast to a console that could just as easily have been a boring box. At the end of the day, these design changes aren't going to change your experience using the PS5, and it is all up to your interpretation of what looks good, but I think they're nice revisions nonetheless. However, this last and arguably the largest physical change could change your PS5 experience, or at least give you more choices down the road. I am, of course, talking about the modular element, which you may have heard of if you saw any pictures of this thing or heard anything about it beforehand. This is an interesting one because what this means is that you'll be able to buy the digital-only version of the console, and if you eventually decide you want to upgrade, you can just buy a disc drive to attach to your console, and all of a sudden you have the disc version of the console. Personally, I'm always going to go for the physical version regardless of the options because I'm obsessed with having physical games on shelves in my house, but I think this is still a nice option for someone that might not be able to do that at the beginning. I could especially see this being useful if you happen to be in a store that only had the digital consoles left in stock and you just want to buy it and then eventually you upgrade later and get that disc drive on its own. But with all these new options also comes the new prices, which aren't so different from the base model but can also be a little deceptive when you really look at it. Firstly, the disc version of the console is going to retail for $499.99 in the US, which is the current standard for that model. For the digital version though, you're going to be looking at a bill of $450, which is a $50 upcharge from the current digital version. Not a huge increase, and you are getting that increased storage capacity and also that decrease in size, but for me, it doesn't really seem warranted, especially when you look back at previous generations and realize that slim versions, they're usually a little cheaper than what originally came out. Doesn't seem like a good look to me, but to be honest, it's probably such a small increase that most people won't notice or care. Where they might care is with the add-ons. For the digital version of the console, if you do decide to go and get that disc drive added later, that's going to run you an additional $80, which would bring your grand total for a disc version of the console to $530 for something that would have cost you $500 if you bought it all at once. And if you want to store that thing vertically, that's going to run you an extra $30 because vertical stands are now being sold separately, as announced in that blog as well. And you'll probably want one because don't even get me started on the included horizontal stand. The image is blurry, but that thing doesn't really look reliable to me. So all in all, a digital console upgrade with a disc drive and vertical stand would now cost you $560. Those aren't the worst price hikes, and you're getting a slightly better product, but at the same time, every little thing adds up. I would recommend saving up if you're going to splurge for this when it eventually comes out. And that brings me to my final point of the video. When is this thing actually coming out? Simply put, it will be released in November in the US with no exact date given, so about a month away, give or take, depending on the day. You can order it directly from PlayStation's website or larger retailers, and moving forward in the coming months, they will roll it out worldwide for everyone else. So there you have it, everybody. Pretty much everything from the PS5 Slim laid bare. Or at least as much as we know. Personally, I might get this for myself and give my old model to my girlfriend or something, but I'm also tempted to wait and see if we eventually get a Pro console. I don't really think this upgrade is worth it for anyone who already has a PS5, but I also don't think it's for those people. For me, it seems more likely to entice people that haven't gotten their hands on one yet or are holding off on doing that, while also letting Sony subtly raise their prices at the same time. But what do you think? Are you going to be getting this during the upcoming holiday season, stick it out with what you currently have, or wait for something better? Let me know down in the comments and we can talk about it there. Thanks for watching, everybody, and I'll see you all next week in another video.